Hi, Errol.
Hi.
There you go. Well, a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn. I'm delighted to be joined again by Errol Musk and Lawrence Fox. How are you both?
Well, thanks.
Good, thank you.
You?
Thank you. And Lawrence, you weren't very well last week. You feeling a lot better?
I am feeling better, yeah. I'm not sure what it was, but it was some pretty dodgy Sunday lunch, I think, was that. But we don't need to go into it.
We don't need to go into it at all. It's got to be good. It's good to see you both. I want to talk about the latest comments that Elon's been making about the UK. And we always say that he who controls the language rules the world. Actually, it was Stalin who said that originally. What Elon's been saying is he's labelled Britain as a tyrannical police state. He's come out in favour of Tommy Robinson, saying what on earth is he doing in jail for 18 months and so on and so forth. And he's saying that Starmer must resign. Errol, we've spoken about this quite a lot here on the show. What's your views on Elon's latest statements?
Well, I think he's right. I mean, they've made it quite clear that the UK is now a police state. They've made it very, very clear. I mean, I watched Jeremy Clarkson on television, having words with the police about them doing something to a group of protesters. And the police just turned around and said to him, as far as we are concerned, you're interfering, you're under arrest. And all he was doing, I mean, we are not, the English are not dopes. We have feelings, understanding, meaning. We know what it's all about. So when we get emotional, we have a reason. It's not like we just get emotional for nothing. You know what I mean? So to just bump him off in a car and apparently arrest Jeremy Clarkson, no, there's no doubt about it. I mean, they couldn't have made it more clear. And this Starmer guy has said that quite clearly. If you don't like it, you can leave.
Yeah, and this is the biggest problem, isn't it, Lawrence? Anybody who's speaking out about anything seems to be arrested. I mean, you had your own experience of the police coming round. Talk us through that.
Yeah, the police have enjoyed intimidating me for quite a few years now. But they came round to the house at early one morning, barged through the door, 6 of them, thinking that I was the mastermind behind the Blade Runners who were trying to dismantle the surveillance state. They took me away. They, on the way to the police station, there were several calls for actual emergencies. And I was locked up. All of my children's devices were taken. My devices were taken. They threatened me with conspiracies to commit criminal damage, which would have involved jail time. They were pretty brutal. And 9 months later, I got back all of my devices. They were broken, and my kids' stuff came back too. All it is, and obviously as per usual, it was followed up with no further action. As with every time the police come and try and get me. But the desire here is to intimidate people. And you would have thought post-Southport and the disturbances following Southport that the government might have learned their lesson, which is that you don't stamp on the citizens of your country who you are woefully failing in your duty as to serve them rather than control them. But no, they doubled down. They doubled down on Alison Pearson. So they decided to go for a mainstream journalist in the United Kingdom and attack the free press directly. And that is all the hallmarks of some Maoist communist state that we're heading towards with this dreadful, dreadful man Starmer.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that. I mean, as in the end, they decided a few days ago they're not going to take any further action about Alison Pearson, and quite rightly so. But the trauma that she went through, and it brought on an asthma attack and so on and so forth. And you documented, because you had your cameras going whilst the police were raiding and taking all your children's electronic devices and everything else. I mean, the trauma for people on that sort of basis is outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah, but it does. I mean, I've come to the conclusion that the police are the enemy of the people. And they're a political police force in service of the government, no different from the NKVD or the Stasi or the Cheka. They are exactly the same thing. They will not police actual crime. They refuse to deal with things like knife crime, which is soaring. They will not deal with the Islamic rape gangs. They take years. They cover all of that. But if you post a tweet or anything on social media in defiance of this tyrannical government, you can expect a knock on the door from the police. And the process is the punishment. They want to turn up at your house, make you feel powerless and vulnerable, and they want to intimidate you into silence. And the only way you deal with people like that, with bullies like that, is you say no. You refuse to be. So I refused. I refused to show them a moment's weakness, and I treat them like the bacon that they are.
Yeah. And Errol, we've now got the latest report in the last few hours. Mahyar Tousi, who's an independent journalist, he made a joke about selling pagers and walkie-talkies to Hezbollah, and the police said it's offensive. There's a possibility that he may be arrested today. He also reported on a pro-Palestine march, and the police say he's not part of a trade union. He said he's not going to go in for a voluntary interview, but we were waiting to hear in the last few hours. Douglas Carswell's come out as well, sort of saying, look, his friend is likely to be arrested today for reporting on a pro-Hamas march in London. What's your view on the police sort of action over here? And you're looking at us from South Africa. You've seen Elon's various tweets. What's your take on it, Errol?
Well, quite honestly, here in South Africa, we never had police behaving in that way. I've never experienced anything in all the time I've been here. I mean, during the apartheid times, apart from the, sort of people who came in from the outside and, but inside the country, we had everybody was kind of getting on with each other. I didn't like the system, of course, but it's just something we inherited, and it's over now, and we're perfectly all right now, and there's no racism here anymore, and we don't have any police coming knocking on our doors here at all. And so I find it really invasive. I don't know. They seem to feel they're entitled. They have an entitlement against the people of England. And I keep saying, this is not English. One is inclined. I have. I mean, my mom. Let me finish. I have always felt, well, I've got a good heritage. I come from a good heritage. That sort of thing. And I would tell my kids that as well. And the old thing, we're English, we don't do things like that. It's like a common sense saying, we see something bad and then they look at you and you say, no, well, we're English, don't do things like that, because it's like, it's like taken for granted. But I remember my mother, she would say, whenever she was tackled about anything that was upset her, she would say, listen, I am British. And the people would just back down right away. I am British. We got on a train once in Connecticut, and we didn't know. I didn't know it was a private train. I never heard of such a thing. This train came in. It was going to Grand Central Station in New York. So I said, it's going to Grand Central this year. So we got on. It turned out to be a private train, and inside was looks luxurious. You see, fantastic seating and bar and cocktails and everything going on. But we sat up. This is nice. And next thing, a chap came along. After a while, a chap came along in a grey suit, gold badge. He said, are you members? And I realized instantly, oh my God. And he said, this is a private train. But I mean, that was like, for my mother, that was like lighting a thunder crash, or what do they call it in the military? I mean, she said, I am British. And so, to cut a long story short, the guy said, don't worry, you're welcome to stay on the train. What would you like to drink, madam?
It is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, you're working on the sort of premise that being British is great, but that's being beaten out of us at the moment, isn't it, Lauren?
No, not for people in the outside world. Even in America, when you go to America, which obviously I do a lot, the average American's got a sort of hallowed attitude towards the English people. They're like sort of more polite, and they're more this and they're more that, and they're not crass like Americans. So your average American sort of views, an English person being like that, and there's a lot of truth in it, to be honest. So yeah, no. I think the circumstances you've got there are absolutely dreadful, and I cannot see this guy staying in past February. Now I'll tell you what. 2 months ago, the Times asked me in early October, what do I think of these riots that are going on there? And I said in early October, this guy has to resign. And the Times reporter said to me, what? I said, he has to resign. He's finished. And then I said, you won't get past February, and you have to have a new election. And they said, no, we don't do things like that in England. It's 4 years. And all that. No. I said, and since then till now, all I see on TV is he must resign. This is Talk TV, GBTV, you know the works. And we need a new election. So there you are.
Well, they've certainly got this petition. It's reached to about 3 million calling for a new election. It's once it reaches 10,000, they have to have a response. So 100,000, they may debate it in Parliament. Well, 3 million they are going to. And coincidentally, it's going to be on January the 6th. Remember January the 6th in America, where everybody get their horns ready. So it's going to be an interesting debate. What's your take on it, Lawrence?
Well, I think the petition itself is indicative of the fact that 4 out of 5 British people did not vote for this man, Keir Starmer. They didn't vote for him, and they didn't vote for his policies. He did a very Joe Biden-y type thing, actually, really, when he took power, which was to pretend to be the sort of grown-up moderate, but he turns out to be a Marxist ideologue. And I think that what the petition says is that the petition says that there's 3 million people out there who loathe you, who loathe the political agenda that you're forcing on our country, and we demand change. The difficult question is in what form that change comes, because we don't have a political party, including Reform, who Elon has spoken about possibly donating to. We do not have a political party that in this country that, as brilliant as Nigel Farage is on a lot of things, on the cultural issues that face this country, I don't think they're his strongest point. And we don't have a political party that will deal with the open border crisis. We don't have a political party that will deal with the rise in radical Islam in this country. And we desperately need some sort of, it's almost a movement that's needed rather than a political party. Those 3 million people need to gather together and march on London and surround Parliament, as the Palestinian mob did, surround Parliament and intimidate them into asking some serious questions, like, why do we have political prisoners in jail now that it has been shown that this massacre committed in Southport, one of only many, many, many committed in Southport, did indeed have an Islamic element to it. We were told categorically, lied to by our government, that it didn't, and we therefore have people in prison for telling the truth. And those questions need to be asked of this Prime Minister. And if this Prime Minister won't answer them, then this Prime Minister should go.
It's absolutely very clear on that. And I think the problem with the petition, even though it will be debated on the 6th of January, they've got such a stonking majority that they're not going to resign. They're going to wait until the next election. You raised an interesting point, Lawrence, about one of the reports that neither Elon nor Farage have confirmed, but there was a suggestion that Elon might be donating 100 million towards reform. Do you know anything about this, Errol?
No, I just heard about it yesterday, and I don't know if. Well, look, I mean, I understand the motive behind it, and if money will help, it will be a good thing. If you're allowed to do things like that, I'm not entirely sure what the rules are, because there are rules on both sides of the Atlantic, not just on. In England, you know what I mean? So there's rules. But, Lawrence brings up a really important thing, and that is that what is the alternative to Starmer? Now, while I don't know Nigel Farage, I've seen that he's spoken a lot. I've listened to him, and he's a good point man. And I've seen him actually get up in the European Parliament and say interesting stuff, but he doesn't have the follow through that you want from a leader, in my opinion. He's a leader, but not the kind of person you're looking for. So, in my opinion, and I think that's what Lawrence was more or less saying, he's a good man, but you need somebody that people will rally around, a sort of Napoleon character, And where that might come from is within the Labour Party itself, because the Labour Party, I've noticed MPs saying they're not kind of sure what the hell their leadership is doing. Excuse my language. Themselves. They're puzzled by what Starmer is doing. They didn't expect any of the things that are going on within their own party. And one of the, 300 or 400 MPs type of thing. So conceivably, there may be somebody from the actual Labour side that says, look, we are Labour, we want to run Labour as a government, but we want to run it on an English basis, not on this, sort of Stalinist basis. And that could happen. That's all I can think of. But Because if a new election is announced, I don't know who people can vote for. Lawrence has really hit the nail on the head. There has to be someone who comes up. Someone has to come up.
Well, I mean, extraordinary scenes in Parliament in the last few days with Keir Starmer crossing the floor to go and talk to Nigel Farage. I know you posted about that, Lawrence. What's your take on who the new hero would be to save us?
Well, I think one can look to America here and see that that Trump wasn't a politician. He's not a politician. He's a deeply patriotic man, and that patriotism is what has carried him over. And America has thoroughly rejected woke politics, identity politics, and the politics of division and socialism and Marxism. And so, in my view, the credible alternative, the oldest party in Britain, the Conservative Party, just elected a new leader, Kemi Badenoch. I think that she should feel the confidence in the American result to start attacking these cultural issues, because the cultural issue is the only political issue in the United Kingdom. Starmer thinks he can stamp out what he calls far-right extremism, which is just attacking his own white working class, which is a very stupid thing to do. But Badenoch, I think, if she felt the confidence of the people, she could start outflanking him, and the Conservatives could get some credibility back, if you will. But politicians are very cautious. And the problem with reform, the difficulty I have with reform is essentially a subscription service. It's like Netflix. You don't join it as a member. You have no say in the leadership. You're essentially subscribing to Nigel Farage, and he controls everything. Now, his ideas are great, a lot of them, but I don't think Britain is the solution to a tyrannical Stalinist government is to bring in a benevolent dictator. I don't think that's the answer. I think what you need is a democratically elected politician who runs mainstream political party with a valid and decent constitution to attack these cultural issues. Because in the swing states in America, what really turned those swing states overall as the main issue after all of the other ones was this trans ideology, was the gender ideology. And we need a prime minister, we need a leader of the opposition to come out very strongly for that. In regards to Keir Starmer crossing the floor to go and see Farage, I've sat in Parliament many times when we had Andrew Bridgen in Parliament. And the whole thing is a complete game to these people. They're all laughing and joking. They're all on the same team, right up until the cameras turn on and it all turns very serious and they attack each other. But it's just a sort of, it's a poorly performed play, the Houses of Parliament. And I think the people are what is so fed up. And it's great to see that their frustration is manifesting itself in support of an insurgent party. But I think you've got to be very careful about how democratic that insurgent party is. And in my view, it isn't.
Yeah, it is interesting. Well, also Ben Habib has come out in the last few hours, basically rubbishing and saying that he's now left reform as a result of their sort of policies. Do you know Ben well, Lawrence?
I know Ben very well. He's a man of considerable means, so he's not doing this for money and he's not doing it for power. He loves his country deeply. He's very passionate about the cultural issue. His frustration lies with Farage and the constitution of that party. He said there is no constitution of the party. It's not a democratic party. It's the Nigel Farage party. And his frustration, I think, is a valid one. And the way he's been treated for pointing this stuff out it just goes to show how alluring power is to people. So one just thinks that, we have a Conservative Party. It has been purged pretty much of quite a lot of the wets. There are still some left, and we need to try and encourage Kemi Badenoch to outflank Farage on the thing that she is better on than he is, which is the culture, critical race theory, all of the divisive critical theories, the total indoctrination of our children in school. I got another email this morning saying that my son's school are holding yet another diversity, equity and inclusion conference to talk about race. These are the richest, most privileged children in Britain, and they're being taught about race. They should be taught how not to be spoilt little sods. That's what they should be taught.
Yeah. Errol?
Yeah, I can only agree with that, I don't know what can happen. All I can say is that one way or another, Starmer is done. I mean, there's too many of these examples in the past not to realize that this is the phase in which that he's saying, no, he's not going to, he's just going to go on. And others are saying, no, you can't, and so on. But you've seen this before. You saw this with Nixon. You saw this with, how many, just think about it. And so he's gone. He's going to be going. The thing is, as Lawrence has pointed out, what after? What about after that? And I mean, as I see it, I'm inclined to fully agree with. I actually hate to say it, and I don't see Nigel Farage as the kind of leader. I wouldn't mind having him as a cabinet minister if I had needed someone. But I don't see him leading the UK. There's something not right there for me. But there may be someone, and it may be from the actual Labour Party, which has got all the votes at the moment. But I don't know. All I know is something's got to happen, because at the end of the day, the British people can't go on like this. You can't be frightened. I get people sending me messages on social platforms from England saying, please help us. Please help us. Can Elon please help us? What the heck?
Yeah.
I mean,
it is extraordinary. I think this is the problem, the sort of desperation. You've got the farmers, you've got the sort of lies about taxes, you've got the appointing a convicted fraudster to the cabinet, all these sort of things. I mean, Starmageddon has got to end, but I suspect, obviously, they've got such a whomping majority in the House that it's not going to happen. I want to finally just turn our attention to Tommy Robinson. We spoke about him last time on the 28th of October, which is when he was just jailed for 18 months for this contempt of court. He's now spent 35 days in isolation, including November the 27th, which was his birthday, so his 42nd birthday in prison. Are you still in touch with Tommy, Lawrence?
I was just actually speaking to Jordan Peterson yesterday to get them back in touch with each other. I mean, what's happened to Tommy is egregious. This is a civil wrong. The contempt of court is a civil wrong. The facts are contested. We're losing confidence and trust and faith in the absolutely foundational institutions of a nation. And it's that, I know it's said over and over again, that Hemingway line from The Sun also rises, that it's like bankruptcy. When bad things happen, it's like bankruptcy. It happens slowly and then very, very quickly. And if we lose our confidence and our faith in the judiciary, if we lose our confidence and faith in the police, we are in absolute dire straits. I've been speaking to some lawyers and some other people, including Ben Habib, actually, to say that Britain must have free speech protection in law. It cannot be just down to the parliamentarians. And we should also have an Englishman's home as a castle law as well, where police are not allowed to come through your front door because they think that you've said something hurty on the tweet. And if they do come through your door, the taxpayer should fund legal challenges against the police, because the police need to be put back in their box. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah,
he's a political prisoner.
Yeah, I always say trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback, and trust in the police is at an all-time low at the moment. I mean, apart from the contempt of court, for which you got this 18-month sentence, and Elon's spoken about how egregious that is, and how when you look at other sentences that are being given, suspended sentences and so on and so forth, makes it a complete nonsense. He's got another trial coming up for not allowing access to his mobile phone, which is obviously just a hunting expedition, and that trial is set for March 2025. When he was stopped, he said he wasn't going to give his PIN to his phone because they would just try and fish for more information. What's your take on that, Errol?
Well, as far as Starmer is concerned, I don't know much about what you just mentioned, but as far as Starmer is concerned, I listened to David Starkey, an elderly man, gave an hour-long analysis of the situation there, which I found extremely accurate. And his basic take was, Starmer's got to go. He's got to go. And he's an academic, I think, but he gives a very good rundown of what the situation is. And I think what we have to do now is realize where we are. We're sort of somewhere before Christmas. And the next few weeks, we'll see what transpires. Every day, the Starmer Group are taking a new step in the wrong direction. Every day, there's something new that they are totally enraging people about. And so let's see what they come up. They're going to overreach. They're obviously going to overreach to a point where people are going to say no, because that's the standard form. They're going to overreach. And it's a question of, do the public submit, like they did in maybe you know, in cities, Germany, and in other countries where authoritarianism took over, what's going to happen? My experience with the English is they're just a little slow to react. That's all, and they always have been, which is good, really. And so I think you're going to see a lot of things happening in the next 2 months. A lot.
It is. As I say, and what's important, which is why it's so important that the various channels that we can spend time unpacking these things. The mainstream media don't shine a spotlight enough at the moment. As I say, Mahyar Tousi at the moment is under investigation. He may well be arrested today. What advice would you give to him, Lawrence?
Well, my attitude to the police, I wouldn't recommend to other people. The way that I deal with the police, I'm very calm with them when they need to do it. I wouldn't let them in. I wouldn't let if they came to his door, I wouldn't let them in. That's what I'd say. And I think you have a right to. We must put free speech above almost everything else. And I'm not a free speech absolutist. I don't think you should be able to you should incite for murder and things like that. But we have legal repercussions. But this creeping speech legislation that they're trying to use, they're going, well, we can't get Alison Pearson. We'll go just one rung lower down the ladder. A guy with a huge online following. He's not said anything particularly bad. The idea that, as you say, the propaganda media as saying that the police are saying that if he's not part of an accredited propaganda media union, he can't say what he wants to say, just reminds us of how important it was and what a gift to humanity Elon buying X was. Because, without X, which is the only free speech platform left on Earth, we would be being shoveled this narrative that Mahyar Tousi, an Iranian refugee, is in some way a far-right extremist. It's absolutely astonishing.
Yeah. Final word to you, Errol.
Well, I would say that at the moment, while we feel a bit sort of doom and gloomish, that at this time, Starmer must be having words with his spin doctors, and they will be telling him at this point in time, and he's asking them, where do we stand? So although we look at it perhaps and we think, well, they seem, inviolate up there, for them, from their point of view, they will be thinking, where do we stand? And his spin doctors will be telling him, things do not look good for you. If they've got any brains at all, they'll be telling him, things do not look good for you. These calls for you are not a joke. They are very serious. And unless something is done, or unless a miracle happens, you've had it. That's what his spin doctors will be telling him. And they'll be spinning into the night right now, thinking, what can we do? What can we do? And then probably come up with some stupid new, authoritarianism thing. I don't know. But they are definitely going to be worried. There's no way they're sitting there saying, no, it's fine. We're fine. We're not worried at all. They must be worried out of their skins.
I know some interesting points. And sadly, I'm sure this is a topic we're going to keep returning to. But for now, Errol Musk and Lawrence Tonks, thank you very much for joining me.
Okay.